Hi, welcome to the Optimizing Your Brilliance podcast, where we get to the source of what makes people brilliant and explore how to eradicate the barriers that stop you from shining. By shining, I mean being at your absolute best in both work and life. You'll hear from business and thought leaders who bear all and share their insider secrets, along with my episodes focused on optimizing your performance, productivity, success, and well-being. My name is Estelle Read, founder of Be, executive coach, speaker, and best-selling author of Inner Brilliance, Outer Shine, 10 Antidotes to Imposter Syndrome, Workaholism, and Stress. So, if you're ready to take your work life to the next level, let's begin. In this episode, I catch up with Coach Gemma Hogan to discuss what it means to be resilient and how to bounce back and thrive in challenging times. We have a candid conversation about overcoming imposter syndrome, navigating career pivots, and finding your flow both professionally and personally. Gemma shares the momentous moments that shaped her and the practical tools she uses to help others break through their own barriers. Having battled with imposter syndrome for many years in her HR career, through coaching, Gemma was able to overcome it and achieve career success that she never envisaged. As a qualified coach and NLP master practitioner, Gemma specialises in career leadership coaching and in particular working with professional women struggling with imposter syndrome in their careers. She also facilitates group coaching programs for organisations with her business partner and fellow coach, Lisa Alden. And they deliver their signature Elevate Her program for aspiring leaders. Whether you're struggling with self-doubt or looking for inspiration to take your next big leap, this episode is packed with wisdom and actionable advice. Welcome everybody. I have got Gemma Hogan with me today, and I was just saying I'm really excited we're catching up, aren't we?
Yeah.
In truth. And I was looking back on my records, 2017.
I remember it. It was a pivotal moment in my life, actually.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. And the reason I wanted you to come on is one, obviously, fellow coach, come on. We'll be able to talk lots, won't we? And I know that there'll be loads of stuff you'll be able to share, but also I really respect and admire you as well as a fellow coach. And when you and I first connected, I remember some of the stories you used to tell me about how you were going off as a solo traveller to New England, and I really love your bravery. I love brave women. That's one of my things. And yeah, I just thought you'd be great for it. So that's why you're here.
No pressure then.
Not at all, honestly. We'll just have a chat. So the first question with all guests is always, tell us what your origin story is. What makes you?
It's such a rich question, isn't it? Because straight away my brain's it's pinging off in all directions. I think if I think back, because obviously I'll go all the way back to early childhood, I think with me, I was always playful, curious, probably a little bit of cheekiness in there as well. Not very good at concentrating. I used to get told off for talking in class, so it probably doesn't come as a surprise to you. And I've told this story on workshops, actually. I always remember, and this was in junior school, I talked that much that one of the teachers put me to the back of the class on a desk on my own and turned my desk to face the wall so that I couldn't talk to any other children. I think I was traumatized by that, but I can now laugh at it in adulthood. But at the same time, I think I was quite an awkward child. I always felt like I didn't really fit in. And so I didn't really enjoy school. And I think I carried some of that awkwardness into life, into when I went into work, for example. And so I was always told in school, very capable, gets distracted, doesn't pay attention, distracts other people. And you carry some of those stories with you. So I always felt that I never, I suppose, did as well as I could have. The potential was there. And I think it frustrated my parents as well. Parents' evening, it was always like, Gemma's very capable, but that followed me all through school and what have you. And then I think when you layer on top of that, and this is why I find this really interesting in terms of this podcast and topic, I was the eldest of 4 children. So there's always that expectation, that role model to do right, to set an example. I also grew up in a very strict Catholic household as well. So it's very much about wrong and right. Back as a child, very rebellious against all of those rules. As you get older, there's some really good values in there. And I suppose when I went into the world of work, and particularly in my earlier career, that kind of then manifested itself in terms of that imposter syndrome and lack of confidence, self-doubt. So all of those monsters came out of the shadows. Do you want me to continue from there in terms
There are so many things that I want to pick up on already. And playful and curious, what great traits to have, especially as a solopreneur as well. And oh my goodness, 80s schooling and also parenting. And I was listening to Matthew McConaughey being, I never know whether that's how you pronounce his name. Is it McConaughey?
what do you normally call him?
I think that's what I normally call him, but I was listening to him on a podcast and he was talking about his trauma. He wouldn't refer to it as trauma, but I would say as a generation, that was our upbringing, wasn't it? Exactly as you describe, desk to the wall. And I've heard so many other stories, hands on head, fingers on lips.
Yeah.
But he got quite offended by someone suggested he should go and get some therapy for it. And yet you can tell he holds so much. And I'm a big fan of journaling and all that kind of thing. And he's a big journaler. But it's interesting as well when he was talking about his values
Yeah.
and you were talking about right and wrong and how that then influences us, and also how we can judge ourselves for right and wrongness. And I don't know about you in your work, but when I work with clients, one of the biggest limiting beliefs I work with is either I'm not enough, not good enough, which is the whole imposter syndrome thing, or I get things wrong, which then is almost, it's like a sub belief of that I'm not good enough. And yeah, so imposter syndrome, self-doubt. So how did the right and wrongness influence you growing up?
I think, gosh, what would I say? I think the rightness. So if I was doing things and they were deemed as right, you'd obviously, I suppose it's that approval, isn't it? You're looking for that approval and approval from your parents. And I think if I did something wrong, I think it was almost, but I think a lot of this is in your own head, isn't it? It's your own interpretation of there's a wrong and a right way to do things. So then it puts expectations on you and that you've got to say the right thing, do the right thing. So yeah, it's also like this really overbearing moral compass that kind of sat there.
Yes. And also it's when we have these, again, beliefs in the back of our brain about what we should or shouldn't be doing, we then develop behavioral coping strategies to either do more of the right things and often less of the wrong things, which a bit like the woman I was working with this morning, we can lose our sense of self, can't we? Because we're following somebody else's set of rules. How have you navigated that?
Yeah.
There's expectations, but also imposter syndrome as well.
Yeah. There's a couple of things. I think one of the things was when I had my son, so I had my son in my late teens, which obviously I didn't plan to become a parent in my late teens. So that was one turning point for me. It started a turning point where it just made me reevaluate life and the way in which I was leading myself. So I was more intentional. So although I suppose, come out of school, had a bad experience, didn't fit, didn't think I did very well, and then I'd gone into the world of work, wasn't very confident, that once I became a mother, it was like, okay, I had to have a word with myself and I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. You can't let, circumstances dictate it. You need to flip this on its head. So for me, then I thought, okay, I need to create a vision here in terms of what I want out of my life. And so for me, it was like, I want to go into a profession, I want to have a successful career. And at the time, I'd got obviously a young son, I was bringing him up on my own. I'd got my parents were supporting me, which I was very grateful for. But I went back to college because I didn't do A levels, didn't go on to uni originally because I just thought I didn't enjoy school, so I'm not going to enjoy an extension of that educational piece. So I went and did night classes. I went and did a business studies course for a year. I went and did a degree, and then I went and did a postgraduate, and then I went into HR. So that was the first kind of, I suppose, light at the end of the tunnel where I thought, actually, I never would have envisaged I could have done all of that. So once I'd done all of that, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So, what can I go on to do? And when I went into HR, I started as a HR administrator because I was told I was overqualified, underexperienced, and it took me a year and a half to get that HR admin role. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to be an officer, then I'm going to be a manager. And I only went as far as that. And then when I got to the manager bit, I was like, oh, okay, I'm a manager now. What's next? So then I moved on, I went into business partner, went on to director. So each time, but I got imposter syndrome at each of those points. And that's obviously where it shows up in our career because we're stretching, putting a head above the parapet. But I think because I was bringing my son up and because I wanted to be that good role model, that was my internal drive that kept pushing me. So even though I was having all of these doubts, it just kept pushing me each time. Partway through that journey, 2017 is where our paths crossed. And that then catapulted me even further, actually. That helped to massively break a lot of that imposter syndrome. So those bits of imposter syndrome that were still left and getting in the way, the coaching massively just blew it out of the water.
Oh, bless you. Thank you for saying that. I genuinely didn't expect a plug at all.
Now I've not come on to intentionally plug, but it's genuine. If I speak
Yeah.
to anybody, there's certain parts in my life, and that's one of those defining moments in my life.
Ah.
And actually, it was really interesting because I only came across you because I'd gone to a CIPD event and you were doing a bit of an intro to coaching and mentoring. And I thought, I really, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, you're so warm. I thought, I'm going to go and have a go at this coaching. And then that was it. I was sold. I was like, sign me up.
And update people where you are now. So what
Yeah, so I was very lucky. I had a successful career in it ended up spanning HR, talent, learning and development, and organizational development for 16 years. And then I got to the point, and again, it's interesting because like when I was trying to break from administrator to officer in my earlier career, it's like you don't have enough experience. And then somebody left, and then I went and said, could I have the job? You still don't have enough experience. I was like, give me half the job. I'll prove to you that I can do it. And then obviously I went on from there. When I tried to move to director level, I'd gone through 2 interview processes in an organisation and hadn't been successful. And I thought, no, I know I can do much more than this. So I moved to another organisation, got the HR director role, but I also had a European HR director role. I was also head of talent, head of engagement. So at that point, I thought, where do I go from there? And I thought at that point, I think I've had enough of working in that kind of trajectory in terms of the HR pathway. So then I set my own business up. I went off initially and did my coaching qualification. I went and did my NLP certification, then went back and did my master practitioner and set my business up in 2019. So I focus on consultancy and coaching. So typically I do career coaching, leadership coaching, but have a specialist interest, no surprise to anybody that's listening, in imposter syndrome because it's something that I experienced for years. It kept getting in the way. And when we think about the defensive behaviours and some of those imposter competency types, I experienced all of them, sometimes all
yeah.
at once, but I was still able to push through and to keep pushing through. So, like you were talking about your coaching and what you enjoy, I love nothing more than working with. It's not just women, but I predominantly work with women in that space in terms of helping them to push through those barriers, to reframe, to change their mindset, and to go on and achieve things that they thought was never possible. And that's through my own lived experience of, look, here's living proof it can be done.
Yeah, aren't we just so lucky to do the job that we do?
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it.
And what was it for you ultimately that made you go from HRD to coaching? Because it's interesting. I've
Yeah.
heard your version of the story many times, but
Yeah, for me, at the time, the business I was working in, they were sold to private equity. I'd never worked for private equity before. I stuck it out for 2 years, but then for me, I thought actually, I know it's worked for private equity, and I understand it. It's about return on investment. It's all about the numbers. But it was lots of restructuring, redundancy. I thought I can't head up engagement and talent. We're not investing. There was a lot of lip service. So I think at that point, I thought, do I go and do another HR director role somewhere else? But then I thought that kind of creative side started to come into effect where I thought, actually, I'd rather just spend my time working on projects with different clients, things that will fire me up, that are interesting, like that variety, but also being able to do the coaching as well. And when I first started, coaching was a small aspect. I thought, I enjoy coaching, but I don't want to do lots of coaching. But over the last 6 years, I've ended up doing more coaching and then moving into doing group coaching programs. So I love just those coaching conversations, the richness of them. And when people go off, clients go off and they continue to process and come back and say, this has happened and that's happened. It's just so rewarding. So I
It
absolutely love
is.
it. And it runs through me now so much. I was at the gym at the weekend, I did a Zumba class, and one of the ladies there was talking to me, going through a personal situation. And straight away, without even thinking, I was like, right, okay, well, if I was working with a client, here's what I'd advise the client to think about. Here's some tools, here's some techniques. And she came to me last night because I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm going to Zumba 3 times on the trot. And she said, to me, I went home, I did some journaling. I took everything out of my head that was stressing me and overwhelming. I've written it down. I've gone through and I thought about some of the actions that I could take, some of the conversations I could have. And she said to me, I was meant to bump into you at the gym. She says, I feel like a small step has been taken in the right direction. She says, and I just feel like I've unburdened myself. And she said, I'm so grateful. And for me, I didn't really think anything of it. I just automatically thought, here's some things that might be useful for you to think about. This is how they might help you. So just in that just normal day-to-day kind of conversations, it just spills out everywhere.
That's it. That's it. And I remember when I first trained, I used to get told off by my husband if we were at a party because I'd be off pinning people up against the wall. Not literally. Just I think like you, I'm just naturally curious in people, where they come from, what's their story. It's one of the reasons I started my podcast up again. I'm doing my family's head in because whenever we go out, I love to interview people when we're just going out for dinner and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it is really fascinating. But just to pick up on one thing you said that person unburden themselves. And often we are on the receiving end of that, aren't we? What do you do? And this could be useful for listeners to, if they've got people in their lives where they find themselves being burdened. And I'm going to put it in inverted commas because it's part of our role, isn't it, to receive that information. But how do you cope with that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because a few years ago, I used to have friends of friends that would say to me, oh, I remember I've got this one example. So I've got a friend of a friend who I'd met a few times, really nice lady. And she'd reached out to me one time and said, she said, oh, I'd love to meet up for a coffee if you're free. So we met up for a coffee, but she brought somebody else with her, some random person I've never met in my life, and then said she's got all these challenges, she's going through X, Y, and Z. So this lady starts unburdening all of her problems. And I sat there thinking, oh, and I really didn't know what to do. I thought if my friend's friend had come and said, look, I've got some challenges, I'd have rather have been up front, but I thought I'd have been fine. A cup of coffee, we can have.
Yes.
But I thought you've just brought somebody in. Don't know any context, don't know them at all. It was a very difficult work situation. So in the end, I kindly suggested get in touch with ACASH. I had to be mindful because part of me thought, oh, I could go into that advice giving monster, but I thought I had to be really careful with boundaries. So I think for me, I think I'm naturally one of those personalities. I'm empathetic. I listen, and I think to myself, look, for the sake of having a conversation with somebody, or jumping on a call, or spending half an hour, giving some time, I do that naturally anyway. I think I just have to be careful of my energy,
Mm.
boundaries, because if you offer too much of that out there, then obviously it can really impact on energy. Uh,
Mm.
Another thing I used to struggle with, that it's something that I have worked on, is when you're in coaching or when you're that type of person, I would find that I then worry about people thinking, oh gosh, they're really going through X, Y, and Z, and this is happening, that's happening. It might play on my mind. And I've had to work really hard at going, I need to compartmentalize it. I can't carry those problems and emotions with me, support the person as much as I can, but then I have to go right until next time. So really being clear about those boundaries and that energy piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a skill in itself, isn't it? Metaphorically and physically, I'm looking because I've got a folder in there. I have to shut my folder and then it's like, we've done our best. I've sent off the email. Now it's over to you. We're always, and like for my clients, we're always an email away.
Yeah.
And I would never leave anyone hanging. But I remember, and this was during lockdown, I had one client that had been suicidal, but I didn't realize they were suicidal until I got a text message from them whilst I was sat in bed. This was a late Saturday night, and they were threatening to take their life. And that really ramped things up. At that point, I think I'd had two gin and tonics because it was a Saturday night as well. But trying to then handle that situation, but it was a place that I never went back to, and that's why, and managed it, but I was up all night with them, and it was a horrible, difficult time for them. But we got through it, and we got through the other side, and they were absolutely fine. And but it is, you have got to be really careful, haven't you, of your boundaries and letting people know what's okay and what's not okay. And how do you manage your energy? What do you do to?
Yeah, I'm quite lucky. And I know people probably think, oh, but everybody has stresses and anxieties, but I manage it really well. But I think I've learned because I have suffered from burnout in the past. So I have burnt out in a job, trying to do too much, be too much, and give too much. Once you experience burnout, I would assume most people would try their hardest not to ever go back to that place because it is awful. So for me,
Mm,
it's very much about I'll get out. I love walking, I love exercising, I do art. So I make sure that I have that kind of creative space. Me and my husband love to go out walking at the weekends. We plan days away and holidays and things like that. I like to read. So I'm always conscious that, and again, I've had to learn it because it is a skill where I used to pack too much in and do too much with everybody and everything. And then I had to think to myself, actually, it's taking too much energy. Space now where if I feel that life's ramped up and work's ramped up and it's starting to eat into the energy, I make a conscious effort of going, I'm not happy with this because then I'm not getting to do the reading or I'm not getting to do my art time. So I consciously then have to recalibrate and I'll think, okay, I need to say no to something or I need to pull back on something or have I got too many priorities? And I think as I've got older, and particularly because I do strengths profiling, which talks about energies as well, that energy piece is massive. So that's a game changer for me, the whole energy piece, and being aware of if I am starting to feel depleted, but equally what energizes me. So I'm really clear about those things. So one of the things I'm doing at the minute is for the last 12 months, I've been doing a part-time role supporting a level 7 apprenticeship for strategic people practitioners. The bit that energizes me is the one-to-ones, bit of coaching, bit of mentoring. The part that completely de-energizes me is all of the compliance, the admin, the marking, the KPIs. And so I'm stepping away from that role in a couple of weeks' time. I can't continue because it drains my energy levels so much. It would be easier and make sense in the current climate for me to continue in that role because it's regular income, it's a salaried position, but my energy, it just goes like that. So I've had to go, no, I need to shut that off and I need to go and do something else.
tell me about the strengths profiling that you do, how it works, and because I'm wincing here. Uh, years ago, Mike paid for my birthday for me to do that training, and I've never done it. It's just sat there. I never got round to doing it. So tell me what you've got from it, how it works, and how you're using it with your clients.
I think what I like about it is that it sits in the positive psychology. So this is about, and if you think about school and work, particularly when we were growing up, it was very much about that's great, but you need to improve, you need to get better, and you need to focus. So this is the other way. This is going, actually, let's look at the resources that we've got within us and thinking about that future facing, tapping into that positive side. So the reason I like with strengths profile is I like that it's a simple model. So it talks about our realised strengths. So they're the things that we are aware of because we use them, hence the realised. They energise us, and when we use them, we perform really well. On the other side, you've then got your unrealised strengths. So similar, they energise us, and when we use them and perform them really well, but we don't use them very often. So we might not realise that it's actually a realised strength, or it might be something we're aware of, but we've just not got that opportunity to use it. One of the biggest insights for me was the learned behaviours. So they can hoodwink you where you almost feel that they're a strength, but they de-energize us. So for example, when I did my training, my work ethic came up as a learned behavior. So I was like, that's a strength, that's always been a strength, that's what's got me through. So my backstory and everything. But then when I sat with it for a little while and did a bit of reflection, I thought, oh, but actually it does consume a lot of energy. So it's really interesting. You have, and then obviously weaknesses. So things that we de-energize us aren't very good. So when you present that to people, they look at it and think it's a really simple model. But once you start to go, okay, tell me about some of these and where they show up, or some of those insights where they go, oh my gosh, a learned behaviour. So it's really rich conversations. So I use it in one-to-one work. I use it in coaching programs, so doing group work as well. And with that, you can get individual profiles, but you can also have a team profile and manager profile about how to manage certain people in terms of their strengths. But there's coaching questions in there. There's a little book that goes with it. There's a kind of, here's how these strengths are when you're performing them, and then that caveat of be mindful of, so obviously not overusing strengths as well. So I find it a really useful tool, and it's not putting people in boxes and saying you are. It's a kind of, actually, you've filled it out, here's the basis on which you've filled it out. It is a snapshot, so it might look a little bit different in 12 months time, but it's just a really good opportunity. And then I always find, whether it's on one-to-one or group basis, it always energizes people because you're talking about the things that they're good at that energize them, or thinking, actually, if you've got a weakness over here, you could compensate with using this unrealized behavior over here, strength over here. So I always find that people go, actually, it was really interesting, insightful, and it gives them something to go away and think about and build on.
And for you personally, what was the biggest change you made as a result of getting your feedback?
I think for me, it was the energy piece, because although I was aware of energy before I went into it, I think once I went into it and had more of an understanding of what my strengths are about, what energizes and de-energizes, that's then became something that I talk about all the time and think about all the time. And so if I go back to this apprenticeship role, before I probably would have gone, I don't really like that work, or I don't enjoy it. Whereas now I go, actually, no, that de-energizes me. I know I can feel my energy taking that dip. So I think it's just some of the language that I use around it.
And the other thing I wanted to come back to was you being an NLPer. So tell me about your NLP journey, what you got from that, how you're using that in your everyday life.
It's an interesting one because in the coaching community, it's like Marmite, isn't it? Have you come across that? It's a
Yeah.
either absolutely hate it, love it. I'm probably in the middle ground a little bit. So when I did my coaching qualification, we used some NLP techniques in there. So then I thought, oh, I'm going to go and look into NLP a little bit more. So I went off and did the practitioner, and obviously we use lots of different tools and techniques, and I found it really useful. I thought it'd be great for the coaching practice as well. Then I went and did the master practitioner, which, when I look back now, I think it was like 80 hours of training. It was a big piece of work. What I've done subsequently is I incorporate elements of it into it. So, for example, as part of the master practitioner, you do hypnosis. I've not used that subsequently. And I don't know if that's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's a people are going to look at me gone out if I start talking about doing hypnosis as part of a breakthrough or something. But interestingly, as part of the NLP master practitioner, you build up to doing what's called a breakthrough day. So with that breakthrough day, a little bit like some of the things we've talked about, where you look at things like origin, so you look at your backstory, you look at your values, you look at maybe where some of the blockers are in your life, and then you go through using obviously some scripting, some tools, and some of the hypnosis. So when I went into my breakthrough day and had another coach working with me, I was a little bit cynical because I was like, you know, whatever. And it was really funny because a colleague I was working with at the time said to me, when people go into NLP training, he said it's life changing. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, when I went back into work, he took one look at my face and he went, oh my God, he said it's happened to you. And it was really bizarre because I went into this breakthrough day, I had a breakthrough, and I cried. I don't know
Yeah.
where that came from because obviously something unblocked. I had some realizations. The person that I was working with, she had a substantial breakthrough. So there was something she wanted more than anything, had written it off. And then a couple of years after our training, she came to me and said, this is now in my life. I've gone and done this. And this was a result of the breakthrough day. I won't say on this podcast,
Yeah, of course.
but we're talking like something very significant. And that obviously is not all down to me, but it just showed that actually it can be a real catalyst. And
Mm.
So I take aspects of it. There are some aspects of it that I use. I don't use everything. Probably should go back and revisit and revise on some of the other tools and techniques that have maybe fallen to the wayside a little bit. But I know because you're an NLP practitioner, are you?
Yeah, I used to
You're
be
a
a
practitioner.
trainer.
Train.
So I used to qualify people, and I had a similar experience. I did my first NLP practitioner training. I guess my breakthrough as a result of that was I set up my business for whatever reason, whatever occurred. I was just like, I'm just going to set up my business. And then I went off and studied with a different school because I wanted to get a different spin on it, because it's interesting how it depends what the heritage of the NLP is. And that was a totally different experience. Oh my goodness, it's probably about 20 years ago. We used to watch things on DVDs, but this was this was like a break for it through. But instead, modern back then, we didn't have streaming or anything like that. So you used to learn watching your CD-ROMs, and then you would go and do the live training. But interestingly, I wasn't skilled either at hypnosis. And that's not to say that I do use it in visualizations and that type of things. But when I went to do my trainer's training, so you do prac, and by the way, for those of you that are listening, thinking, what the hell is NLP? NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. So, how you take things in through your neurology, it goes through the unconscious program in your mind, all your filters and everything. And then it comes out as a program, which is your behavior and your state. But yeah, I arrived at this NLP trainers training. I'm not kidding. There were people hypnotizing other people and making them drop on the floor, that type of stage hypnotism. And I was like, I really don't like this. And also when I did my master practitioner, I remember they taught us how to use the hypnotic language for sales. And that really grated on my integrity. I said, I am not manipulating people into buying off me. They buy of free will.
Mm.
That being said, NLP trainers training was amazing. And I trained with John Grinder,
Yeah.
who them two are coming back together,
No.
Richard Bandler and John Grinder,
Okay.
because they separated. So these are two guys that invented the model of or NLP, because it's coming up for 50 years old when it
Mm.
was first invented. Now, to say it's a model of communication, I always think it's hilarious that they weren't able to communicate and they had to separate. But anyway, they're a model of excellence. But training with John Grinder, he was both really scary. So apparently he was a spy or something. And he's also a professor of linguistics. So imagine spy guy, all in black, but could run circles around anyone linguistically. The language is really complicated, isn't it? Even the title.
Yeah.
And I met him in the lift when we were doing trainers training. I'm not kidding you, this was like a 2 week affair, practically 24/7. You got a few hours to sleep in between. And I said to him, I've not quite managed to get over my phobia. Because for me, if I'm going to sell something, I've got to be congruent with that product.
Yeah.
And it hadn't worked for me. And it brushed it off. And then so as part of that process, you have to do a demonstration on stage in front of a live audience. I think there's about 200 people.
Yeah.
So you're having to do like timeline in front of everybody. And then there was these intense exams. It was really intense. And he said, she's one to watch when I stood up. And that was like, you're talking about in line with strengths. And that was a moment where I thought, oh, actually, I'm doing the right career.
Mm.
But where I think with any model, not every model or technique or tool works for everyone, does it? And that was then, So because I'd not had my phobia cured, I then went on this quest, which is how I found EFT, the tapping, integral eye movement therapy. But the thing for me was havening. But I do think you've got to be congruent with your product, haven't you?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because when we were doing the hypnosis, we watched a video and I didn't like the video. I didn't enjoy it at all. And I'm trying to think back now. I think just the way the person was hypnotized, it just felt so unnatural and it just didn't sit comfortably with me. Although I used, and obviously it's a mild hypnosis, isn't it, that you use in a breakthrough
Yeah,
day. And it did work because part of that is obviously you're reprogramming the language and the thought patterns as part of it. But going forward, I thought I'm a bit on the fence with it actually.
yeah,
And I think I wonder if that's why I've parked it to the side and thought, actually, I'm not fully congruent with it. So I'm just going to leave it sitting there. Um,
yeah. But I do think we all have different abilities. And like one of my other coaching buddies, he is an amazing linguist. And there was three of us. We all went on the NLP practitioner, and we all had different strengths. And
yeah.
he was the linguist, he was the hypnotherapist who could make you go into trance just like that. It was amazing. But it just wasn't my thing.
Talking of phobias, so 'cause obviously when you go into it, you do it like a phobia. So my phobias at the time were I was terrible, and I picked this up from my mum, bees and wasps. So the bee and wasp
Yes.
are near me, petrified, run, scream, leave small children to fend for themselves level of phobia. And so when I was having my phobia as part of the accreditation, so we were working on the phobia, I made a mistake of saying bees and wasps. So what happened was post the phobia exercise, the removal of the phobia, it cured me for bees, but not for wasps. So now I can walk down paths with loads of flowers and bees. I can go up close, take photos, as long as a bee doesn't come like that close to my face. But otherwise, completely fine. And so my family will say you're like a different person. Wasps still a massive issue, so I do need to go back and have my phobia cured for my wasps.
Isn't that fascinating though? But also, that's the power of language, isn't it?
Yeah,
So, two words, and one word was used during the phobia cure.
yeah,
Yeah, that is really fascinating.
yeah.
I know we're going to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
And so, for you personally, what does it mean what's your definition of taking things to the next level?
I think. What do I think? So I'm looking up now because I'm thinking.
This is why you get paranoid about, isn't it? Are they watching me? I'm not. Well, so for those of you that are thinking, what the hell are they on about? Our eyes move in certain directions when we're having certain thoughts. That's part of the NLP model.
So different because I'm an external processor, so my brain starts going ping, and normally I
Yeah,
ping with it. So I'm trying to go just have a moment to think. And I think for the next level for me, I guess I think it's achieving what you thought you couldn't achieve. So if I go back, I think in terms of my career, so when I was at that kind of admin officer level role, the first part going into the HR, because it was difficult to get into HR, and I thought I want to be a HR officer. And when I got the HR officer role, then I was like, I haven't thought beyond that. Okay, what does that look like after that? So it was HR manager. So for me, then it was like I'm going to take myself up to that next level. And then every time I kept moving up. And what that meant for me was, what does that mean? It meant more responsibility. It meant working in bigger organisations. It meant really stretching myself from a learning perspective. And even going from employed to then self-employed and creating my own business. That for me, I keep levelling up. And if I think about it, at the moment, I'm levelling up again. So I've been doing like one-to-one coaching mainly, apart from last year I did a group coaching program, been doing consultancy work. I've now teamed up with another coach and friend, Lisa Alden, and so we're
hello, Lisa.
she'll love that little plug for her. So we're leveling up because we've gone, actually we love working together, so let's work together full time. Let's do more group coaching programs. Let's go out and work with more clients. So again, that's leveling up again for me. It's going from that one-to-one relationship to that group relationship. And then in my mind, I've still got all these other levels where I think, and then I'm going to go and do this, then I'm going to go and do this, and then I'm going to go and do that. So an earlier version of me wouldn't have had all of that kind of vision. It would have been, here's the next thing. Dare I think about it? So I think when I think about other people leveling up, it's almost, I don't know, it's like if you don't think you can get to this level, try and push yourself another 2 or 3 levels beyond that because you will be able to do it. You just got to have,
Yeah,
yeah.
That's it. I love that. And I like one of my questions is around what's in the future for you? What are all those different levels? What are you
All right.
excited about?
So, next year we're thinking about doing a podcast. That's me and Lisa.
Yeah.
That's one of our things. But outside of that, on a life plan perspective, me and my husband are planning to move to France, hopefully, in the next 2.5 to 3 years. So next summer we're going out. I'm going to spend a couple of weeks touring around some of the areas that we're thinking of living. Just so we go to France for the last couple of years, and we'll go to France for the next 2 or 3 years. Then look to make that move. As part of that move, I obviously want to continue with my coaching business, continue to work with Lisa. So we've gone, oh, we can do a retreat in France. I want to develop my art more. So I love doing art. So I do predominantly watercolor, oil painting. So I'd like to get to a point where I start to sell some of that art as well. I want to write a book. I want to do more travel. So and these aren't things that I think, oh, wouldn't that be nice? And they're floating around. These have been in my head now for a couple of years where I'm like thinking, it's a timing. I need to put the plans in action. And then I'm thinking, and then there'll be other stuff. I'm not sure what that's like yet. I love to do travel writing as well. So there's so many different things out there that I'm like, it excites me.
Oh, I feel excited for you. Isn't it great when, and this is my ethos in life, that there's always something to look forward to, isn't there? And we only get one chance, depending what your beliefs are. If you come back for a return journey, that's great. But in this life, we only get one chance, don't we? And I come from a really small market town,
Yeah.
which is so Lancaster and Morecambe. It's coastal, and it's interesting what living there does to your mindset. In that, for me, I felt quite trapped, quite limited by experiences. And you were talking about trying to get on the HR career path. I felt exactly the same. It was really hard. Chicken and egg, isn't it? To how do you get the experience without being offered the role? And so I can remember thinking, do you know what? I'm just going to have to move away to Manchester to get the job that I want to get in order to progress through the levels. Now, as it happened, fell in love with my husband, and the rest is history. We moved away. But I really, and I remember talking to an old friend, and they said to me, you're always here, there, and everywhere. Your life looks really exciting, and you're always so happy. And it's not that don't get me wrong, we all have tough times, don't we, in life? But life is what you make it, isn't it? And it's those, I'm a big believer in always having something new and interesting and exciting to work towards so that we do keep rising,
Right.
enhancing life.
Yeah. And I think I've probably always been that way, but I think obviously I'm much more intentional about it, particularly once you move into that kind of coaching space. I think I give my mum and dad a heart attack most of the time because I think they think, oh, what do you mean you're leaving your career? What do you mean you're leaving here? What do you mean you're doing that? And despite explaining to them, I still don't think they understand what I do. They'll just go, how's work? How are we? If I go, oh, I'm transitioning from this to this, and it's quite uncertain in the middle, you can see that they literally are going like that, thinking, oh my gosh. And it's, but it doesn't put me off. Yeah. And I always think, do you know, what's the worst that can happen? Go and have a go. Massive fan of Susan Jeffries, Face the Fear or Feel the Fear. I can't remember which way. Feel the Fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so that's my motto. And I just think I've always surprised myself. There's hardly anything that's failed. And if you do that, so what? It's like, go and do something else or go and have another go. Has anybody, I don't be too glib with this, but has anybody died? Has anything broken or burnt down? No. And for me, I think whilst I've got the means in terms of the energy, I've got the support of my husband, and I've got that appetite, I just think, just keep going until I can't go, you know?
Yes.
And then I'll find something else to do. Why not?
What a fantastic attitude. So, one final, I'm always like this with guests. I think, oh, there's so many questions I want to ask you. I'm going to ask France. Whereabouts do you want to live in France?
So we've been looking around at the Lot de Garonne. So it's about an hour south of Bergerac.
Oh, what is it you like about that?
Oh, we want to be near a river. Uh,
Yeah,
because my husband can sail, so maybe a boat, and if not, then the
yeah.
offshore. But we want somewhere that's close to an airport. We've looked at obviously the weather, we've looked at some of the towns. We're going to go and stay there next summer. We follow a few people on YouTube as well who've made the break out there. So yeah, so that's the area, one of the areas that we'll be looking at.
Lovely. And then your art. Tell me about how did you get into your art? I noticed you were going on a course. That looks amazing. Tell me about that.
So at school, I used to do art, loved art. I did GCSE art. Interestingly, at the time, There's a whole theme that runs here. I used to start pieces of artwork and never finished it off. I'd always move on to something else. Now, obviously, once I got into HR and I did disc profiling, obviously personality profiling for listeners, I then realised that I'm a high I, or if people are doing insights, I'm a yellow. So obviously, new shiny things, that's me. So I didn't realise that back at school. So it starts me, oh, this is great. Oh, look at that over there. I'm going to go and have a go. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me go over there. So now I realise I never got anything finished. Then what happened was I didn't really do art for many years, but I used to love going to galleries. I used to like taking photos. And then when COVID happened, I joined some online talk and draws through the National Gallery. So last Friday of every month, they would talk about particular artists, talk about their inspirations, and then they would use different mediums and get you to do something for about half an hour. So that obviously reignited. And this is what Strengths is about, this strength spotting of, if you go back to childhood, it's something that I loved and I was good at. And so the clue was there, but it got lost in translation for many years. So then once COVID stopped, I went off and did a course like mixed media course. Then I went off and did oil painting. The past couple of cruises we've been on, they did watercolour courses on the cruises. You could go along and sit looking out the window, see whales in the distance while you're doing a bit of watercolour. And then I went down to Cornwall a couple of weeks ago and spent 3 whole days at St Ives School of Painting. So I love it. I get lost for hours and hours.
What does it give? What does it get you?
I just zone out. Nothing else exists around me. I just get lost in the picture that I'm drawing or the paint. And I've even got past this part where most artists look and go, oh, I'm not happy with my work. I could do better. I could. Don't get me wrong, I still have some of it. But in the main, I just think I want to enjoy it. And if I produce something great, brilliant. But if I don't, doesn't matter. I've enjoyed the process. So I've got a bedroom upstairs that's converted into an art studio. So I've got my easel in there. I've got all my different paints, papers. I've got art all around the room. Just enjoy it. It's just so, I say therapeutic. Did I say anything else? No, it's just so therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's that, I don't know if it's ikigai. It gets pronounced in different ways.
Yeah.
It's my flow. So I've got two flows. One is when I'm out walking. Nothing exists. I just look around at nature. I just take it in. I'm like this. I'm like this. My brain just switches down from life. And the same when I'm doing the painting. I'm completely 100% in my flow.
Yeah. Oh, I love. And do you think this is because I've just got into knitting?
Yeah, I saw you doing
Is
this.
it- Do you think, and that was a childhood thing, and I'm similar in that I get into a flow. I can learn much more easily when I'm doing something. I'm very kinesthetic, so I've noticed that if I'm listening to a podcast, or the other day I was on a course and I was knitting, and it really helped me to process and solidify what I was learning. But I find it quite meditative as well. I'm not a very good sit still and meditate person. I'm more of a meditate while you walk or while you're doing something. But yeah, and my friend said to me, she said, "Oh God, it's because we're getting older. Do you think it's that time of life where?" And I said, "I don't know. Maybe it's, I think for me, it's one of the things back to boundaries. One of the things that stopped me from being a workaholic and just working all the time is having loads of hobbies, things that I love doing, and that creates natural boundaries. I don't know. What about you?
Interesting, because I think it's a stigma attached to knitting, isn't there? Because I think my grandma taught me to knit, and but when I was in my 20s, I used to knit and I used to enjoy it. I haven't done it for many years, so I think there's a stigma attached to that. I think it's more about it's those creative outlets, isn't it? It's about doing something that you find enjoyable. That and if you're in that flow where because you enjoy it and because you're good at it, you just get lost in it then, don't you? And for me, I just think for our mental well-being, it is massively important. So I think the more creative outlets you can have, the better. And I know it doesn't come naturally to people, but it's finding something that means that you're in your flow and so you're not worrying about the what ifs and the this and the that. You can just switch off, even if it's for half an hour, an hour, whatever it is. It just allows you to switch off. And I find that, so for example, if I go out walking, I won't think about stuff when I'm out walking, but when I come back, I might then kind of go, oh, and I have some really great creative thoughts. And I know that's because I've just gone out and in nature and just let myself go. So I don't think it's old fashioned. I think it's a creative outlet for you, isn't it? Creating something and enjoying it at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's it. So I will bring things to a close. One more question, and I want to link it to something you said earlier, and it was when you were talking about imposter syndrome and how you just kept pushing through boundaries. And so The question is, what does it mean to be brilliant? So that's the question, but the subtext to that is, and how do you continue to push through those barriers so that other people could learn how you've conquered imposter syndrome, I guess, to be brilliant? Because you are brilliant, you're amazing. I love your energy. Yeah, you're just as I expected.
Oh, thank you. I think
Mhm.
what I'd say, I think in the beginning, when you've got, and I speak to lots of people, my learners on my cohort have spoken about imposter syndrome when I work with clients. When you're in the thick of it, and it does feel like it's constant and it's overbearing and it's really impacting people, whether it's holding them back, whether they're working excessively, they're burning out, it's really difficult to believe that there's an alternative. And I think for me, I think my circumstances helped me. So the fact that, as I say, I've got my son at a young age. So for me, it created a purpose where I thought, actually, I want to change this situation. So I want to make sure I've got a good career, good income, I'm a good role model. So I think because I had that, even at those moments where I would be riddled with self-doubt, I took myself out of interview processes. When I'd go for an interview, I'd be a bag of nerves, and they'd come back saying, "We really liked you. Come back to a second interview, you can do a presentation." I'd be like, "Oh, no, thank you very much." And then I'd pull out of the process. So there's a really silly behaviours that I had. Despite all of that, I'd got this purpose of, but I'm on this path and I have to keep pushing through. And each time I push through it, I would then, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think I could do that, or I didn't think I could get to that. Oh, look where I am. Oh, okay. I'll go to this, I've got to identify this next stage. And then I push through that and I think, okay. So the more you do it, obviously, believe you build yourself, believe you build your confidence. You still have those moments of doubt. When I was moving from employment to self-employment, and I remember, and it was the NLP. I came back off NLP and went, I'm out of here. And people were like, what? And people were like, have you run a business before? Nope. What are you doing? I'm gonna go and give it a go. It's just, it's funny, isn't it? But I think it's because I was able to go, all these things I didn't think I could do, I've done plus more. So
Yeah.
why shouldn't I be able to do this? Why shouldn't I be able to? So it helps me to flip that mindset of, and I think as well, give yourself permission to say, look, if I'm not successful, so what?
Yeah.
Or if I fail, so what? But
We
I'm
have
probably not going to.
We have to fail along the way in order to succeed, don't we? But what's really interesting, so two things. One, your future helps you push through, doesn't it? Having a clear purpose, but also if we're doing timelines, those of you that are not watching, I'm indicating with the timeline with my hand. You could see that you were also, your past is informing your future, isn't it? You're reflecting back on, look, I've had all these successes and then you're pushing through towards that purpose, vision, or whatever else. I can hear, you know where you're going. And what do you do in those real moments of self-doubt? Is there any one thing that you do that you find really useful?
I think for me, it is that reminder of, and I think it is helpful if you've got past reference points where you think, oh, that was really difficult, or that was really uncomfortable, or awkward, or I remember, I'll share a very short story. I used to be absolutely diabolical at presenting. The thought of, but this tied into the imposter syndrome, this doubt. So the thought of having to present, I would stress, I would sweat, I couldn't breathe. And I remember I went to work for a company. I'm laughing now, but it's not funny. I'm still laughing. I went to work for this company. I've been there, I think, 2 weeks. Invited to a sales meeting, five-star hotel, big team, it's about 20 people. And they said, we want you to do a HR update. So obviously I stressed and stressed. Thought, I can't get out of it. I'm the only person. Got up to do the presentation. And as I was presenting, I got quicker. I couldn't breathe. I became squeaky and high-pitched. And when I went and sat down, a few people kind of said, oh, yeah, you did good. Some woman sat next to me and she said, oh, it's really funny because you started talking and then you went like that. So she impersonated me going quicker and higher
Oh,
pitched. And so I think back to points like that where, and obviously it was a bit of a long journey, but I'm now okay with it. But I
yeah.
think places like that, I think, but you overcame that and now
Mm.
you're able to. And I've go off and do team building, facilitate workshops, things like. So I always go back to those reference points. I think when if you can get through that and you've got through that and you're now able to do, then you'll be able to work through this. You'll be able to get through this. So
Yeah.
that's and that, like you said, that timeline bit of reminding myself of look how far you've come, not what you've achieved. If you go back to a 17, 18-year-old, you would never have dreamt that this is where you'd be today. So I always find that really helpful.
Yeah, but no, you're not on your own. Those experiences, because I train people how to present, and I was exactly like you. I used to get Tarzan effect. Like seriously, I'd be so nervous. I would literally get a full-on body blush. I'd have to wear a polo neck to cover up how red I was going. And it is, people are really afraid of presenting. They say death came third when it came to what people fear the most. Number one is presenting. But it is a real moment, isn't it, when you're able to overcome that stuff? And I can't believe your colleague did an impression of you.
I
That's
know.
so
And
inappropriate.
then sat there laughing. When you think in your head, you think, oh my gosh, you're mortified. You think it was this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then a few people go, oh, and you maybe
yeah,
go, okay, it wasn't great. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. And then when somebody next to you says that and you go, oh my God, no, it was as bad as I thought. I mean, that obviously, I had PTSD about presenting for quite some time.
yeah. I'm not surprised.
And then the same company, I went to do some presentation skills in Germany. I thought I'll go to Germany because nobody knows me. Anyway, they all said to me, you speak too fast and we don't understand what you're saying.
Ah, no,
I continued because I thought I'm going to have to overcome it.
good for
So
you.
to be able to you have to get uncomfortable, as comfortable with being uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
you have to, that happens. Let me obviously practice, there's other opportunities, and you've overcome much worse.
That experience, you know why people fear, or the main reason why people fear presenting, it's often dates back to the school scenario. Even your situation where you were at the front of class, desk, not allowed to talk. Time and time again, I've had, like, they used to make you read out in class and all that type of jazz. And it's that all eyes on you, public humiliation, shame. So, of course, adults grow up fearing the
Yeah.
classroom environment again. But genuinely, if you get rid of those triggers, and you can using various techniques, can't you? It really is a great thing to overcome, and it's amazing how much more confident people can feel.
Definitely.
You have been wonderful, as I knew you would be.
Oh, thank you. It's been lovely. I've enjoyed it. Like I say, nice chat, catch up. Because obviously, and I know we've caught up in between a little bit, but as I say, pivotal for me was the coaching, and that then sent me off on my coaching program, and then obviously into my coaching career. I love coaching, and you.
Bless you. Oh, thank you. You are just fabulous. And sat here just really fascinated by everything that you're doing, and exciting times ahead for you with you and Lisa and Franz and the book and selling art. Brilliant. Thank you so much. If you'd like to be notified when the next episode drops, remember to subscribe. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit. Finally, if any of these topics have sparked your interest and you'd like to work with me, you can apply for a free discovery call at estelleread.com. Let's see if we're a good fit. You'll also find plenty of free resources there. I'm Estelle Read, executive coach, speaker, and best-selling author, and this has been the Optimizing Your Brilliance podcast. Thanks for listening. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for any specific advice related to your situation.